Greek mythology was part of the religion of ancient Greece. Stories about gods and goddesses, heroes and monsters, were an important part of everyday life. They explained everything from religious rituals to the weather, and they gave meaning to the world people saw around them. Let's get started and learn all about Greek mythology. Greek mythology was used to explain the environment, natural phenomena, and the days, months, and seasons. Myths were also connected to religion, and sought to explain the origin and lives of the gods, where humans had come from, and where the soul went after death. Myths were also used to retell historical events so that people could maintain contact with their ancestors. It helped them remember their history and the wars they've fought, and record the places the ancient Greeks had explored. Since literacy was low in those times, Greek myths were typically passed on orally by Minoan and Mycenaean bards from the 18th century BCE onwards. From the 8th century BCE, the creation of poems in Ionia and the celebrated poems of Homer and Hesiod were developed. When mythology began appearing in written form, epic stories were recorded, such as Homer's Iliad, which recounts the final stages of the Trojan War. This was a war between the Greeks and their eastern neighbors in the late Bronze Age. Then, the Odyssey recounts the voyage home of the hero, Odysseus, following the Trojan War. Another example includes Hesiod's Theogony, which gives a genealogy of the gods. His story titled Works and Days also describes the creation of man. Besides literature, mythical scenes decorated ceramics and helped to spread the myths to audiences far and wide. The myths grew in popularity and appeared on buildings of importance, such as the Parthenon at Athens, the Temple of Zeus at Olympia, and the Temple to Apollo at Delphi. In the 5th century BCE, theater performances featuring mythology blossomed. This is evident in the world of tragedy playwrights, Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. In the 6th century BCE, beliefs started to change, and myths were viewed with more skepticism. Some were even rejected. This was because pre-Socratic philosophers were starting the search for more scientific explanations for phenomena and events. Some of the first historians, named Herodotus and Thucydides, were also responsible for accurately documenting and recording events with less subjectivity, which brought about the modern subject of history. So who were the Greek gods and mythical creatures? Let's begin with the Titans. The 12 Titans were the group of gods immediately preceding the Olympian gods. They were the children of the first great primeval deities of the Greeks, Uranus, who represented heaven, and Gaia, who represented earth. Two other primeval deities were Erebus, who represented darkness, and Nyx, who represented the night. Later, the Olympians defeated the Titans in a battle called the Titanomachy. It was said that before this world came into existence, there was a confused mass of shapeless elements called chaos. Uranus and Gaia created two distinctly different races of beings called giants and titans. The 12 Titans were also called the Uranides. Their names were Cronus, Oceanus, Iapetus, Hyperion, Crius, Coeus, Rhea, Tethys, Thea, Phoebe, Themis, and Mnemosyne. There were also 4 other deities named Atlas, Prometheus, Epimetheus, and Menetius. Many of the children and grandchildren of the Titans also bore the name of Titan. Some examples are the Hyperionides, who included Helios, Selene, and Eos. The Coides, who included Leto, Asteria, and Hecate. And the Cranides, who included Pallas, Astræus, and Perses. Now, let's take a closer look at the Olympians. The Olympians gained their supremacy in a war between gods. Here, Zeus led his siblings to victory over the Titans. Not all of the Titans were sent to Tartarus, which was a kind of underworld. Some Titans kept their status and became consorts to Zeus. Each of the Olympians had powers and ruled over particular things. Zeus was the king of the gods. He was the youngest child of the Titans Cronus and Rhea. He was the ruler of Mount Olympus and god of the sky, lightning, and thunder. He represented law, order, and justice. Hera was queen of the gods. She was the goddess of marriage, women, childbirth, and family. Poseidon was god of the seas, water, storms, hurricanes, earthquakes, and horses. Demeter was the goddess of the harvest, fertility, agriculture, nature, and the seasons. Athena was the goddess of wisdom, handicraft, and warfare. She was the daughter of Zeus, who emerged from her father's imagination fully grown and in full battle armor. Apollo was the god of light and the sun. He represented prophecy, philosophy, truth, inspiration, poetry, music, arts, medicine, healing, and even plague. Artemis, goddess of the hunt, represented the wilderness, virginity, the moon, archery, childbirth, protection, and plague. Ares was the god of war. He represented violence, bloodshed, and masculine virtues. All the other gods despised him. Aphrodite was the goddess of love, pleasure, passion, procreation, fertility, beauty, and desire. Hephaestus was a master blacksmith and craftsman of the gods. He was god of the forge, craftsmanship, invention, fire, and volcanoes. Hermes was the messenger of the gods. He was the god of travel, commerce, communication, borders, eloquence, diplomacy, thieves, and games. Lastly, there was Hestia. She was one of the original 12 Olympians and was the goddess of the hearth, fire, and the right ordering of domesticity in the family. Now, let's look at some of the minor deities of Greek mythology. Starting with sky deities, these were the gods and goddesses that controlled celestial bodies and the weather. They represented the light, sun, moon, and winds. The sun gods were Hyperion, Helios, Apollo, and Phanes. The moon goddesses were Phoebe, Artemis, Selene, Hecate, Nemesis, Eurynomy, and mortals by the name of Dictina and Pasiphae. Water and sea deities include Pontus, Nereus, Phorcys, Oceanus, Tethys, and the river goddess, Styx. The earth deities were associated with the land, fertility, and agriculture. They included Hecate, Zagreus, Cybele, Pan, Silenus, and Aristeus. There are lots of other deities with various attributes in Greek mythology. These include Medes, Hebe, Eileithyia, Iris, and Eris. You may have heard of Greek deities called muses. These were the goddesses who inspired men and women. This is why we often call a person who inspires artists as a muse. The muses were proficient in arts, literature, and science. Their names were Calliope, Clio, Erato, Euterpe, Melpomene, Polyhymnia, Terpsichore, Talia, and Urania. The Graces were the personification of beauty and grace. They were Charis, or Aglaia, meaning splendor, Euphrosyne, meaning mirth, and Talia, or Pasithea, meaning good cheer. Other minor Greek deities that you may have heard of were Nemesis, who was the goddess of divine retribution, the Hori, who were the original personifications of spring, summer, and winter, the Moirae, named Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropasu, who were the goddesses of fate, Tyche, goddess of fortune, Nike, the goddess of victory, Paeon, the god of healing, Circe, sorceress, Despoina, goddess of horses, Enyo, the goddess of war, Ate, the goddess of foolishness and moral blindness, Diomus, the god of fear, Phobos, the god of panic, and Ananke, the personification of fate or necessity. Lastly, there were the demigods. They were part mortal and part god. Because of this, they were more powerful than people but less powerful than the gods. Each had their own origin stories and parents. The most well-known demigods were Achilles, Dionysius, Heracles, Helen, Orion, Orpheus, and Perseus. If you enjoyed learning about Greek mythology and the many kinds of Greek gods and goddesses, you can learn more about each one, as well as fantastical Greek creatures and monsters, by visiting KidsKonnect. You'll find thousands of fun and educational worksheets perfect for the classroom or homeschoolers. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe to be the first to know about new videos. See you in the next one.